Ah, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Up and running.
Okay,
Cool.
up and running. Great stuff. So tonight really is about just, tips and guidance on how to ride your most enjoyable ride, Joburg. I think that's how we're seeing it. And of course, enjoyable means a couple of things or different things rather to different people. But for those that have joined us, welcome. Good evening. We've got Nic White on the call. And I guess, what can you look forward to over the next hour? Yeah, I'm just currently just kind of welcoming everybody. I'll formally introduce Nic in a couple of minutes' time. Then we'll talk about training leading up to race day. And then we'll touch on some race day
I saw them
tactics.
fighting.
If I can maybe ask everyone to mute. Not too sure where I'm getting the feedback from. And then we'll just touch on some benefits of being a part of Team Vitality. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have some time to just kind of go through the questions and answers that have come through tonight. Okay. On that note, I think let me kind of officially welcome Nic, and thank him once again for being with us tonight. And just by way of introduction, I mean, Nic is a cycling coach, and he's got a qualification from Cycling Australia. And I think what's really great with Nic's expertise is he's a former professional cyclist, winner of many events in South Africa, Asia, and Europe. The inaugural winner of the 94.7 Cycle Challenge, and again in 2009. What's been, I think, a privilege for us as Team Vitality is Nic has been able to assist us with quite a number of things, and he'll unpack those. But that includes, some of the activities that he's done with us as Team Vitality, which was guiding the Team Vitality group in the double century that happens in Swellendam, where no one got left behind. He led a fantastic team of 12 cyclists over the line. That was really great to experience. I was there on the day supporting. And still, I guess Nic is still active in the cycling world in terms of being physically active. Of course, he coaches, and he'll unpack that later. But he still runs the odd bicycle tour in South Africa. And he still races. I mean, recently having won the 50 plus age category in the South African Road Cycling Championships. So, Nic, welcome to you again. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to hand over to you as you kind of talk us through, what it takes to lead up to Ride Joburg, and maybe a little bit more about yourself. But yeah, thank you, Nic. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Pateni and Team Vitality, for having me on this evening to discuss the last few weeks build up before the Ride Joburg, which, in all of my career, it's been a special event to do. To ride on the roads of Joburg that are closed for cyclists is always fantastic. And if you're in Joburg, you're a cyclist, and even if you aren't a full-time or a regular cyclist, it's definitely worth going out and doing this event. So yeah, I've always been a big fan of it, and it's been to be great to share some ideas and knowledge with you, and hopefully on the race day spend some time with you.
Okay, great, Nic.
Super.
Let's get started. I mean, it's quite a big thing to be able to kind of assess, and I guess assessment is a big part of it, where you at, and being honest. So yeah, maybe just talk us through what that entails as a first step.
So I think in short,
maybe can we ask, I think it's CGM to mute for us. Thank you so much.
Super. So yeah, I think, it's obviously quite a challenging route riding through Joburg. It's undulating to the point of being quite hilly towards the end. So I think the easiest thing to be able to do is, like, have you been doing some long rides, and how fast are you able to comfortably ride, for instance, around the Cape Cradle or in the area where you would normally train. So we have sort of earmarked some ideas of how fast you'd need to go, obviously excluding stops to finish in a certain time. So we'd put those together, and I expect that. There we go. There we go. Have a good look at our map. But yeah, in terms of average speeds to reach a certain finish time, I have those out there on the left. And to finish at like 3 hours 30, you've got to average 28 kilometers an hour, which, if you stop a few times, it's got to be marginally quicker than that. And so it's broken down. And, if you aren't going out for 94 Ks or 97 Ks, 100 kilometers, but if you're doing a 60-kilometer ride, what sort of average speed do you end up at? And that can probably give you a little bit of an indication of how fast or what sort of time you may hope for. Obviously, race days, sometimes you can extend yourself and have a better day than you expect, but it can also be quite difficult and maybe not go entirely to plan. As you see on our little Strava route there, you can have a look at the route profile. And the first half of, call it 51 kilometers, is relatively quick. There's a lot of downhill, and you can cover that part quite fast. So potentially a quicker average speed than you may finish with, but you're going to have your work cut out for you on the return. So, the two halves of the event are two very different halves.
Correct.
We'll talk about that a little bit further down the line, but assessing yourself, you can have a look back and say, okay, I can ride 60 Ks at this sort of average speed.
Yes.
How often have you ridden up to 100 kilometers? And that way you can get a little bit of an idea of, okay, I can expect this or that. This is where I sort of hope that I can finish in terms of qualifying your own personal expectation.
Okay, great, Nick. And I think what we'll do a little bit later on is maybe unpack the group that you'll be pacing on race day. We're excited that you'll be joining us for the coffee ride over the race weekend and on race day, but a little bit more about that later on. I think, now that we've kind of had a look at what people need to target, I think it's quite important to then just kind of have a look at how people lead up to that, just kind of realistically, what does training entail week by week? Just some of the combinations, some of the advice from yourself. And then, of course, we'll have a look at the kind of support that we as Team Vitality, in partnership or with a few collabs, are looking to provide to our Team Vitality community, and of course anyone else that's outside of the community that is willing to ride either with us or with kind of like other communities. So I'll maybe just kind of go back to the week by week, and maybe you can just talk us through what it is that you suggest people do leading up to race day.
So what you're having a look at the screen at the moment is the platform we use to put plans on for people's training. I've put it on my profile now just to get a little bit of a visual idea of certain days and what type of riding you can do, whether it's on an indoor trainer or if you go outside. Everyone's got a different space that they're in. How much time do you have to spend to train, and weekends, what can that entail? So without going into great depth and nitty gritty, you have essentially probably 2 days a week, maybe as a thumbs up, a Tuesday and a Thursday. So there's an easy day or a rest day in between. And those days during the working week when you can maybe add an hour, whether it's be indoors or even an hour and a half outside, where you can go and do a good ride, and that can be varied as well between, flatter routes, some hilly routes. So variation is key, extending yourself and trying to have some consistency during the working week so that then when you have more time on the weekends, potentially riding with a group in a longer ride or even alone for more hours, you can then, tie the weekends together. So, whether or not you've done this up until this point, 4 weeks to go, it's still time to start to add some more training in that can give you some consistency to bring the weekends closer together, potentially extending the time that you're spending on the bike over the weekends, at least one solid good ride, and maybe the second day of a weekend is a rest. Maybe it's a shorter, easier ride. But if you have a look at these weeks leading up there, we've got some sort of structured things that could be followed. But even if you don't follow the exact structure, you need to potentially vary your routes, vary your pace to a certain degree, and have a hard day, easier day, hard day, rest day, long day, easy day. So you find that pattern, and your body then recovers between the harder sessions so that you can push hard again, i.e., Tuesday hard, Wednesday easy, Thursday hard, rest. And as your body starts to adapt from those training sessions that you are able to do, your form and your ability will improve to the point where we back off a little bit of intensity and duration leading up to the event. And so doing it creates a little bit of a taper. Your body takes in the work that you've done, and then hopefully by the race day, you're ready to push yourself to the full extent of having a super nice race of Joburg.
Okay, fantastic. If you've got any questions, just a reminder, more than happy that you raise your hand. Alternatively, you can drop us your questions or comments in the chat box. So once again, yeah, if you want to ask any questions, please raise your hand. I'll look out for some of the hands that get raised. If not, you can drop your questions in the chat box. And of course, more than happy to be able to pick up on those later on in the conversation. All right. So, I mean, I guess a big part of it, Nick, is, what must I eat? How often should I eat it? Does nutrition really help? I mean, there's so much out there that talks about, how you fuel up in terms of your training. I think the rule of thumb is nothing new on race day. And it's so easy to get caught up at Expo, get excited, buy stuff that you've never used. So just in terms of leading up to race event, how should people approach their nutrition? What should they eat? And then on the day itself, when one considers that there's also quite a number of hydration points, which I think is
Yes.
something interesting that we'll pick up on race day, pacing yourself. If you're under pressure, should I stop? Shouldn't I be stopping to fuel up? So yeah, just kind of talk us through the nutrition aspects of things leading up to Ride Joburg.
So obviously, nutrition is something that needs to take place. We are exercising for more than an hour, and your body is an engine and it needs fuel. And there are obviously different types of fuel and different ways to take in the fuel for the engine to run optimally. So that's just talking in layman's terms. But if you're going to race for 4 hours, or even taking it back a couple of steps, and this training picture that we have in front of us, I mean, some of that you can find some of those ideas on our website. There is something that's put into sort of a rough rate perceived exertion idea. But if you're working hard and your heart rate's going high, your body's going to be using glycogen for energy. That's stored sugars in your body, carbohydrates, and that's your fuel source. So if you're working really hard, your heart rate's going high, you're going to burn that fuel rather quickly. Obviously, if you're riding some of these training sessions and you're doing an hour hard, or even up to an hour and a half hard, then your body needs to recover from that. So taking in some carbohydrate, whether it be in an energy drink, or you get some fancy things like gels and other things like that, it can help your body work better, recover faster, and adapt from the training more easily. So that's where you potentially can practice using certain types of nutrition. Easiest in an hour is a carbohydrate type solution that you'd buy from various brands at the sport shop, and you can then use that to train with. Then in so doing, practicing on the longer rides is giving you better endurance. You perhaps don't go as hard when you're going longer, which then means potentially your body is using its carbohydrate stores along with stored fats and other energy sources in your body. And there are different rates at which your body uses energy that's stored, carbohydrates or stored fats, depending on how hard you're going in what you're able to do. And all of these things is your body working, taking in fuel, and managing its effort as you work through the various types of rides that you do. You can take in energy from an energy drink, as I've said. There's a certain amount of energy that you can fit in a bottle that's still soluble and able to be absorbed via a solution. Then you can take on, solid types of fuel in food. That could be from natural food, from fruits, bananas, or apple, or really simple things, which we can find at any supermarket over the counter, to more complex foods like chocolates or energy bars, or purely carefully designed energy products from sports companies, where it's an energy bar that's sort of a concentrated food that you would have a bite of every now and again, to the point where you can actually buy energy gels, which are liquid to a certain degree, quite concentrated, and then that is a way to take on board the carbohydrates more quickly, and obviously specially formulated for your body to absorb along with some fluid. So if you're riding, for instance, 3 or 4 hours, it doesn't help to do an hour, then smash 60 grams of carbs, and then nothing for the next hour, and then smash another 40 grams or whatever. It's quite difficult to do that. So, whether it be running or cycling in our case, what you want to do is you want to take on some carbohydrates in small doses at more or less regular intervals. So you almost drip feeding energy into your engine so that your body can absorb it, start to replace what's getting used, and in so doing, you keep prolonging your energy level throughout the day. So rule of thumb, and if you listen to what they talk about in the Tour de France, the top professionals are potentially taking up to 120 grams of carbohydrates in an hour, which is really, really high. And for most of us that are recreational and don't train a lot and don't practice this, it's impossible to do. It's just going to upset your stomach, and it's going to do more harm than good. So we're probably on like the 40 to 60 grams of carbohydrates that's possible during an hour. And if you work that out and you're doing 4 hours, then you need quite a lot of food if you took in that amount. So you have to almost work it back and decide, okay, a gel is up to 40 grams of carbs. More often than not, it's 30. You can probably have one bottle of carbohydrate drink that's 20 to 30 grams, and a gel, and then you've got 60 in 1 hour. So every 10, 15 minutes, you're drinking a good amount of liquid in your bottle, which is a carbohydrate solution. You're having a bite or two of your energy bar. You may be doing a gel at the end, and maybe you're then getting that sort of 60 grams in an hour. And so it keeps going as your ride wears on. I think as well that if we are targeting a 4-hour ride, for instance, 2 bottles on the bike is not going to get us all the way through the day. So
yes, 100%.
it's going to be
So I think
warm
it's
at the height
about
of summer.
connecting.
So you're going to have to make use of some of the stops that the race provides, just to at least fuel with extra water. So you can take enough in your pockets of fuel, of energy bars or gels, that you can take enough for the whole day, but you have to add the water. So starting with your carbohydrate drinks, potentially 1 bottle is an electrolyte, which also is, I think, as the days are hot and you expending and losing fluid, you can absorb fluid with an electrolyte far easier than plain water. So there's another thing. So, fuel in a carbohydrate is important. Generally, they come with some electrolytes. A bottle with electrolyte is your second bottle. Also going to be useful, and it's not a sugar type drink. It's going to be pretty carb neutral, but it will have your electrolytes, which helps your body to replace some of the salts and things that you lose while you're working hard and sweating in the summer. Having a variety of foods, and now here's where you've got X amount of weekends still to go. You want to go and practice with certain things. So you can get some energy bars in wherever you shop, whether it's even the supermarkets, nougat, bars from Biogen. There's a variety of types, nougat type bars, muesli sorts of bars. It's hard to take a bar and eat the whole thing at once. So it's normally a bite at a time, where you take in a half and another half. So when you're riding, you can't have a picnic, not easily. Everyone's concentrating on riding. So it becomes a quick, okay, I'm having 1 bite, next 20 minutes, another bite. So just steadily putting in fuel. And that's all just in the process of keeping your body topped up, fueled, and then you want to be able to feel good after 3 hours of riding like you did after half an hour of riding. But
Yeah.
mostly, if you don't put fuel in, then you'll feel good here. And as the ride gets further, you start to feel worse and worse, and it gets harder to make efforts. So that's because your fuel tank is emptying and you aren't
Yeah.
topping it up. So I think in
Okay.
that
So
way gives you some idea about the importance of nutrition to
yeah.
get through a good day.
Look, I think I like what you kind of touched on, Nick. And maybe just to welcome everybody, I have seen the question in the chat box that has come through. We'll attend to that just now. Welcome to everyone that's just joined us. Of course, we've got the privilege of having Nic White on the webinar with us, just kind of talking all things Ride Joburg. Nic is a former pro athlete cyclist, having won quite a number of events locally, in Asia and in Europe. And we just kind of talking, training leading up to the day itself. And then, of course, race day. We have recorded the session, so we'll be able to share that with everybody. And at the moment, we're talking nutrition, but I'd like to pick up on something that just kind of Nic spoke about with regards to nutrition. The pressure that a lot of people are under not to stop, right? Of course, if you're going for like a sub 2:30 or even a 3 hour, I mean, you probably are riding from start to finish, and you've trained to ride from start to finish, right? Both physically and I guess mentally, because you've got to be in dark places to be able to ride at that speed, through the hills of Hyde Park and Rosebank, up the zoo without stopping. But generally, for the social riders, which I would presume is a lot of us, the number of stops, Nic, I mean, just to elaborate and expand on the topic of how often can I stop to be able to comfortably make my pace target? I mean, we've obviously got the various pace targets that you've just kind of put up for us on the left-hand side. Yeah, but just in terms of stopping to nutrition, how long? I mean, what would your suggestion be there?
So if you do stop at a water point, you don't want to stop and stand around and take 10 minutes to get some water and to go again. The less time that you spend standing still, the better your legs will feel. Because as you start to relax, then your legs stiffen up, and then it takes you 10 minutes to feel good again on the bike.
Okay.
So you're going to lose time because you're trying to get warm once you get going again, but you're also standing still, the clock's ticking. So if you can get a refill of water in a couple of minutes and then you're on the way again, then that would be ideal. Longer than that, then yeah, you're starting to have a picnic. Legs are going to get heavier. It's harder to start, and your average speed needs to be a little bit higher to make the target time. So yeah, in all of these things, we need to top up with some water. You can only start with 2 bottles. Starting with another something in your pocket is harder. Hydration vests are very popular these days. Maybe not so much in the road racing spheres, but in gravel and mountain bike, they definitely are. So it is a solution to take on more fluid without needing to stop. But some people just find it constricting, and it's nice to not need that. So it all depends on the individual. But there'll be multiple number of water points along the way. I would say that you would easily get halfway without needing to stop for anything. But then on the return, that's somewhere, whether it be, 2/3 in or, 3/4 in, you want to just
Yeah.
top up the bottle just so that you can get through the last part. So I think, on that return main road onto Witkoppen, that sort of area before you really start climbing the hills is probably your safest bet for a little refuel, and then roll on before it gets steep, get your rhythm again, and then be ready to tackle short. Looks like the DC, they look like three ugly sisters heading up to Nelson Mandela Bridge. So definitely you can see them on that profile. They look very distinct. So those are our challenges of the day, are getting back up to that high altitude through the town to head down to the finish.
Okay, thanks, Nic. And then just to kind of encourage everybody, if you wanna drop your question, please do so in the chat box. I've got a question here from Kenny Zimondi. I want to participate with a mountain bike. Is this appropriate, or do I need a road bike? And then there's a follow-up question from Kenny. And do I need a hydration vest? And I think you've already kind of touched on the hydration vest, Nick. So yeah, mountain bike, is it appropriate? Or does
So hydration vest is yeah, it's individualized. There are going to be places to fill up with water, so you don't have to have a hydration vest because there is support along the way. You can ride with a mountain bike. You can ride on any bike. The drawback on the mountain bike is it's a little bit slower and heavier and doesn't go as fast as a road bike, or the effort to make it go at the same speed as a road bike is different. So you might just go a little bit slower than potentially on a road bike, but you can use a mountain bike. It is possible.
okay? Thank you, Nick. So I think I want to kind of move to next is just kind of showcase the support that we are kind of putting together leading up to the day, which is obviously, let me just quickly project here. Yeah, so I mean, from a team vitality perspective, kind of, following from today's conversation, you can go and pretty much download a training program, just off the conversation we've had with Nick. Perhaps, Nick, what I can ask you to do is also just drop your website, or any of your contact details in case anyone wants to reach out. You can download any one of those. We then have what we call our team vitality cycling zones, and I think we'll pick up on that conversation just now with Nick around weekend rides, specifically getting comfortable with riding in groups. But if you kind of, and I'll drop this link in the chat box, in Gauteng, Western Cape, and KZN, we've got a few of our cycling zones. We've also got our Facebook group where you can kind of catch up and connect with people all over the country. And then, of course, we've just had our collab ride with Chovita in the Cradle. We're having our webinar session at the moment. Then we've got 2 more group rides in collaboration with Ride Joburg and Train Joburg. So if you can just note those dates down, it's on the Sunday, the 20th of October. And then that's at Glen Vista. So from the Virgin Active in Glen Vista, together with the following weekend, the Cradle, which is the 27th of October. And then, of course, it goes into the coffee ride details, and then, pacing on race day, together with many other perks that come with Team Vitality. For now, I'll just kind of stop there. I'll drop the link in the group. But Nick, I mean, obviously preferences for a lot of people is they'd like to ride alone, but it does come with a lot of work. And of course, group riding, just kind of thinking about how you can make your targets. On the day, we've got a sub 4-hour group. So if you're keen to join the sub 4 hours, you're more than welcome to join us. But yeah, I mean, riding in groups, I mean, anything around that, Nick, and of course, how people can leverage, just kind of enhancing their skills to be able to ride in groups.
So yeah, road cycling is very much a group sport. It's individual, but the speed of the individual is definitely influenced by the group aspect. That question about a mountain bike, you can ride your mountain bike in the event, you can do the distance, but a mountain bike is a different genre to a road bike, and following in the slipstream of a road bike, it's quite difficult, and it makes it a little bit harder to stick together if you're on different bikes. But that said, the aspect of group cycling is that there's a slipstream effect with multiple cyclists. So if you are behind someone, you could be making 30% less effort to go at the same speed, given that the speed is high, like on a flat or a downhill. The faster you go, the more the drafting effect saves energy. On hills, it's a little bit more negligible because the speed is lower. So with that in mind, that's why we talk about these batch starts and groups going together, because you can go further faster together versus alone in the wind on your own. As you saw in that earlier map of our route, with the profile, there's a lot of downhill in the early part of the event. If you're in a group going at a nice speed, you can save a lot of energy and go at a quicker pace if you are in the right place in the slipstream of others. And that said, it means that if the wind or if your speed is good, you're going to be directly behind or slightly to the side of someone ahead of you by, 30, 40, 50 centimeters, maybe that far, not more, away from the back wheel. Your front wheel's that far away from the other person's back wheel, and you're behind. You can feel that there is a draft, which means that, if it's downhill, you can float along, potentially going for free on someone else's effort. And if everyone takes a turn, taking the front, then the effort is less collectively. So that in theory is the idea behind riding in a group or riding with others. As you saw that route, if you can get to the 50-kilometer mark in a quicker time because you've had the benefit of saving energy, going faster with others, that just means that the hills towards the end can potentially be easier because you're fresher, you have more energy from saving that early energy of the day. And there are fine lines between working really hard to stay with some people in some groups that you spent in any case and got there faster, but essentially spent yourself to get there quickly, and then you haven't got legs for the hills. Or if you're just in a comfortable group of similar minded people, not burning it too hard, but taking benefits of others and saving so that when you get to Kyalami, you've spent a lot of time on the wheels and coasting more so than pedaling hard in the wind, then you're going to have more legs for the end. I think one message I had earlier was how do you do better to get up the last hill in Rosebank? And there's no quick answer with that. It all depends on how you govern your efforts early in the day. How hard are you pushing early? How have you fueled yourself? Have you still got energy in the legs? Obviously, how's your training gone over the last weeks? And have you done longer rides that are at least up to the same amount of time as the race day may be? All of these things will help you have better endurance and have prepared better for the actual race day. And then the race day, how did you spend your energy early in the race? Did you go really hard and push deep in the first 2 hours? And if you did, your next 2 hours are probably going to not be able to be deep because tank is empty and the battery's low because you've spent what you had. Whereas if you can begin a little bit more easily, like almost having a negative split, so maybe not negative split in time, but negative split in effort, that the early part you're almost underdoing how hard you can go, then you'll be able to push deeper on the second half and on the hills where it's important because, you don't want to walk up those hills. They're going to take a big effort. And what's left in the tank? How much have you saved that you can now utilize to get up those hills comfortably? And in so doing, make a faster time overall. So if your first half is too fast, the second half could be too slow. Whereas if you underdo the first half, and then you've got better legs to go quicker than you would have had you been empty for the second half of the ride.
Thank you so much, Nick. I've got a comment here, which is also a question from CG Gam, saying these tips are gold. I don't know whether he or she means they'll go for gold on the day or but then they go on further to say, how much sodium do I need if aiming to complete in 4 hours? Last year I took a cramp ease per 10 kilometer. Shoo.
I think you've got to read the
Yeah,
package inserts when it comes to how much you can take. But
yeah,
if you have an electrolyte tab, or even the days prior to it, if you have a bottle of electrolytes 1 or 2 days before, one a day, that just helps to load the system a little bit. But with cycling, obviously you can read all the packages and say, okay, I need X amount for my size, my weight, whatever. But sometimes cyclists think that if 1 is good, 2 must be better and 3 must be super. And that's not always the case. So
yeah.
everything in moderation. But yeah, if you've got an electrolyte tab in a bottle, one bottle takes a tab. You don't need three in there. One is good. And if you have something else that you can top up another one later on, then you've got another that can help as well. Sometimes cramping comes from dehydration, potentially going harder than you are used to going too early. Then cramps can come later. Being dehydrated, taking a gel, not having any fluid to help the gel be digested can cause cramping as well. And that's another thing with the complex carbohydrates that you can take for cycling. If you take it in the wrong context at the wrong time, so if you're on the back end of 5 hours and you're really dehydrated, you haven't really had that much, and it's a super hot day, and you have a gel and you're feeling I'm low, I better take the gel, but I've got no water. If you take the gel, chances are that it's going to do worse than if you didn't take it, because unless you've got some water to go with the gel to help that solution be absorbable from your stomach, it doesn't work. Then it needs extra water, which might take it from the muscles to help the stomach get rid of the gel. And in so doing, then you cramp, or you have that negative effect of gel didn't help me, it made me feel worse. So some things are complicated, and at the end of the day, the most important thing is, where your body sit. Are you fueling with fluid as well correctly, hydrating correctly, that your body's in a good state of hydration? Then everything works nicely. If that balance changes, then sometimes it can just be worse than good.
Okay, thanks, Nick. I see you've dropped your email address. So I think just in terms of where we're at now, we just kind of have spoken training leading up to race day with Nic White. We had a look at just kind of week on week what you need to be doing. I think it was quite important to assess where you are. I mean, there was a conversation around that. In the chat box, Nick's email address is nic@whiteinc.co.za. If you'd like to reach out to him personally, he's also dropped his website, which is www.whiteinc.co.za. I've dropped the Discovery Team Vitality Ride Joburg link, just kind of the support that we are providing to our community leading up to race day. And this includes just where you can download training programs, the training rides that we will be having in the context of group rides, being comfortable riding in different groups. We spoke about the different target times, so I think it'll be great to be able to try the speeds that you're targeting on race day in the group rides that are coming up in partnership with Ride Joburg. We'll have those at Glen Vista at the Cradle. We've also got our various zone rides that happen around the country. You'll be able to find all that information on that link. I've got a question here from Sabrina. Sabrina says, hi there. I wanted to ask, if I hit a 258 last time and want to aim for a 230, what would your experience advice be to cut that last bit down?
So, Sabrina, that's a big jump in time, but depending on the context of where you did the last time, what group did you start with? If you've now got yourself into an earlier start time with potentially stronger riders, that means that together you go faster, more easily. So that's how you cut out the time, is that, are you strong enough to ride with a stronger group and stick with them through the tougher parts, which essentially would get you around that route a lot faster. And then it becomes, like we alluded to a little bit earlier, the slipstream effect. Where do you sit in the group? How do you get over the hills that you're in the front part of the group and you're managing the speed nicely? If you're in a strong bunch and you're in the early part of the bunch, sometimes it's easier over the top of the hill. It doesn't string out too much because you're in the good piece of part of the bunch. Or are you right at the back and sort of fishtailing and stretching out and coming back together? That's the more difficult space to be if you're in a strong group, because the chance of it's that elastic snapping at any point if you're under pressure is higher. And then once you're out of that group, then potentially waiting for another group, so your time slows, so your potential of a quick time decreases. So all the really, really fast times are from racing aspects, from groups going quickly together, from sticking within those groups and managing obviously the crunch moments towards the end, all those hills with the front or the faster parts of those groups. That's essentially how you cut your time down. So potentially being stronger, most definitely being in the right group and staying with those groups as long as possible. Cool.
Okay, I see Sabrina says, thank you. So obviously a 2:58 in the context of our conversation is a really quick, in fact, even a 2:30, even quicker. Our novices, I mean, we'll be starting in the corporate bunch, which is a later start, probably around 8 o'clock. And I think maybe Nick, just to put some of our novices at ease, I mean, what would that look like starting later? And maybe just being able to manage, or not feeling too discouraged by a late start. Maybe let me put it.
So yeah, 8 o'clock is it's not that late. It also gives you time that you aren't up super early. To do the first part of the day start is a really early start. And it has some benefits, but nevertheless, 8 o'clock is the start time. That means that if you work backwards, you want to be parking your car or getting to the starts maybe an hour before, 45 minutes before, means that you're starting to rush. So if you at the race an hour before, it gives you time to get your bike ready, to get your stuff together, making sure you have your spares on your bike, making sure your bike's together and working well, doing a little bit of a test ride, warm up, just to be comfortable. Okay, I'm good. There's nothing that I need to get further ready and I'm good to go. Making sure you've got your nutrition, finding your way. There's going to be a lot of people there. So then finding your way to your batch, getting to the start chute, that it then makes its way around to where the actual race starts. So being there timeously is going to put you at ease rather than being late and having to rush to find where you need to go. That doesn't get you to the start point in a calm state. Something else that you can do, and what I suggest, especially if you see that the weather is going to be super hot, is take a little disposable bottle of water. Maybe put an electrolyte in your, like a little Valpre type bottle, 500 mils that you can sip on and have before you actually do the start of the day. So if you are going to expect that it's going to take you a fair amount of time and you have a late start, don't be sipping on your two good bottles that are on your bike that you've now eliminated some of your fluid for the race before you start the race. And obviously, you don't want to not drink anything and then you're starting to go into the red waiting and it's hot before you begin. So that is a little tip that I think can work if it's going to be a super warm day and you start your hydration prior to actually starting the race, but not with something that's on your bike. So you can just throw that disposable bottle away at a dustbin before you start the race, and then you have two full bottles to begin with. So that I think is also something useful to do if you don't have a really early start. Obviously, you've had breakfast prior to going to the event. Potentially, you starting to eat a couple of bites, and that's in the time it takes to actually start your event. That way, just kicking off your race nutrition strategy prior to even beginning.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. I see in the comment section, thank you so much from Lorianne saying, remember your helmet, shoes, and in case of emergency, ID. Very, very important. And I think on that note, it just kind of segues into the conversation around the benefits of joining Team Vitality. I'll drop the website or the landing page. So for instance, if you're on the call and you're not yet a Team Vitality member, you are more than welcome to join. And once you've joined, you get the Team Vitality race kit. Okay, it's part of your package. And then, of course, importantly, you get discounts on the ICE ID that Lorianne has already dropped in the call, in the chat box for us. Very, very important. And then, of course, on race day, if you've got a much later start, and usually this is people that are riding Ride Joburg for the very first time, if your time is quite late in the day, you'll get the advantage of starting earlier in the corporate batch with us as Team Vitality. And then, of course, 50% cash back from the event. So your entry fee, you get a portion of that back, which is quite a great benefit. And then on race day, fantastic hospitality that you can enjoy, can catch up with fellow cyclists, fellow community members. And we do pride ourselves in having built what we think is a really strong community that celebrates each other. I just want to maybe get to that screen that showcases the benefits that you can get. And then, of course, if you've got any other additional questions that you'd like to ask us leading up to race day, yeah, so I mean that's our community all around the country. We've really kind of put in a lot of time and effort into building what is now a really robust and very supportive group of riders across, from a 230 to a sub 3, right up until just a 4 hour, 4 hour 35-hour finish. So once again, I'll drop the link where you can sign up to Team Vitality as a cycling club. A lot of the times we talk about cross training. So a lot of the people that join are also runners. We've got a massive running community. You can take up a combo benefit. And hopefully, through the chats that we've had with Nic over the past 45 minutes, you found benefit. And I really hope that as we just kind of look to close tonight, I see the question has been dropped. What time does Discovery Corporate Batch start? Okay, plan for 8 o'clock. Nick has already answered that. But yeah, I really hope that leading up to race day, you will enjoy your ride, Joburg, especially if it's your first. If you're looking to smash your fastest time, I'm looking forward to some feedback from yourself, Sabrina. We thumbs up, kudos. We kind of are rooting for you to go and ride that 230. And then Henley Stain wants to know if I join now, does my membership run for the next 12 months? So it runs up until the end of 2025, Henley. So if you join now, your membership runs up until the end of 2025. We've got renewals coming up on the 1st of November. So you could maybe opt to wait until then and then renew. In other words, you'd get your November and December free, and then for the rest of 2025, you'll be able to, I guess, get 2 months in addition. Okay. On that note, Nic, I don't know, any final comments? Any
Yeah, just the weeks that are left. You have 2 weekends where you can go and join one of the Team Vitality rides around Joburg, various areas, and not super long distances, but it's a chance to ride with others if you haven't been used to riding in a group. Get familiar with doing that. It's always going to be beneficial if you're brand new to it and you're going to experience that on the race day in a group. So take the opportunity to do that. And then obviously, a few more weekends of chance to do some longer endurance rides. Try the pacing strategy a little bit easier to begin with. Then you think you need to go and see how you feel after a couple of hours. How hard can you push? Try and see if you can do a ride that's up to 4 hours long. More than that, I don't think is necessary, even if you knew and your race day might take longer. That is a good amount of ceiling to do. Between 3 and 4 hours is a proper good weekend training ride. You can practice your nutrition, potentially you're riding with others and you're learning to draft a little bit. But that's a really good type of endurance ride that you can do. And if you haven't done a lot during the weeks, then, whether it be at a gym on a watt bike and at least pushing yourself a little bit, getting some structure, or just, you've got Tuesdays and Thursdays minimum to start being active so that your weekends are not far apart. It's only going to help you when you get to the event. You're going to be better off for it. And it's not too late to get some rhythm and to be good for the race day that's coming up soon.
I see we've got another 9 minutes to go, Nick, and an interesting question has
Yes.
come up. Do we have any weekday training rides? So we've got a few. So each zone has got a community, a WhatsApp community. The rides that we offer are weekend rides on a Saturday and in some instances on a Sunday. But what I do know is that some of the communities then have kind of, started doing rides in the week. So if you do kind of reach out, maybe just pop in the chat box where your area is at, or you can go to the link that I've just dropped, look for a zone that's closest to you, and then just join that WhatsApp group and find out if they've got any rides in the week. But I am going to give maybe Nick an opportunity to talk about how you can, I mean, when you look at the training program, I think what bike you've already mentioned, Nick. Any other, tips if you can't necessarily ride in the week, because that does get a little bit more difficult. And I did see that we had that in the training program, 2 rides in the week. But if you're not able to do those, Nick, any other suggestions?
Yeah, I think if you can't get outside on the road, an indoor trainer, a watt bike at a gym, those are always ways to do something indoors. And it's a bit of infrastructure that it's necessary. And so if you aren't really established and able to do that, it's a little bit challenging, even if it's one ride during the week. If you bring your weekends closer together, it's only going to benefit you more. Um, so it depends on the space that you're in, what you're able to do, where you live. Some areas early morning before the traffic starts, there are groups that go riding. I know certain areas they don't have a lot of that. So it's hard to talk in general for everybody because everyone's in a different space. But yeah, we still have and we have been doing, Zwift rides. Obviously, Zwift is not that common anymore, but there are still things that happen on there. Um, not everyone's part of a Virgin Active gym or any gym, for that matter, with access to a watt bike of any sort. So yeah, it's not so easy just to plug into these things. It takes planning, it takes finding the right space, it takes some effort and commitment. Um, but yeah, minimum is that you're able to even, you know, go early-ish in the morning and get some lights on your bike. It's quite light early now in Joburg, so you can go relatively in light weather and do an hour, make a little route around your suburb, around the block, and do some laps. There could potentially be some ways just to put some more effort in to bring the weekends closer together as a minimum that can help you with what's left of the time remaining before the event.
Okay, thanks, Nick. But maybe what I'll do is quickly just go on to, so I've dropped the link that can assist you to just kind of get some valuable information. So this is the landing page for Team Vitality. You can just Google just Team Vitality Running or Cycling Club. You can scroll down. I mean, we've spoken about the benefits that you get as a Team Vitality cycling member. Leading up to Ride Joburg, there you have it. You get up to 313 rands cash back. That's the cycling kit. You get a 25% off your ICE ID bracelet. We'll have hospitality on the day. And then it just kind of gives you the prices. You can join the club. I think, Henley, to your point, this is where you'd activate. But non specific to your question. So if you scroll down on this page, obviously, I think this is quite important as well in terms of joining and being a part of community. We've got our Facebook running and cycling groups. So you then get to a section that says Team Vitality Champions. Join a zone in your province today. You can click on that. Takes you to this page here. Where do we have Team Vitality Champions? If you scroll down, there you have it. You got Gauteng, the Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal. You obviously click cycling. It then gives you options. Cradle, you've got Centurion, and under WhatsApp Us, you can pretty much click on that link, join the WhatsApp community, and like I said, from there onwards, you should be able to get tons and tons of support from the community that we've built. And then, of course, if you're already a member of the club, again, I mean, the website is a great resource in terms of hospitality. So if you go under view race calendar, You'll be able to see all the events. Very important is to realize that not all events have hospitality. So from a cycling perspective, you click cycling, click the year, and then you should be able to kind of see which events you will be at. I think it's a great resource that anyone can use who's part of a club. Yeah, on that note, I think we are good. Once again, Nic, thank you so much to you. Really appreciate to use the words of CG Graham. Thanks for the tips of gold. And thanks to everybody for making the time to join tonight's session. We are hoping to do more of these as we just kind of try and learn as much as we can, leverage the expertise that Team Vitality has in-house and from some of the partnerships and relationships that we have with the likes of Nic White. I know we've got a few of our Team Vitality champions that are on the call. Thank you so much to you guys for joining. And yeah, happy riding. See you all on the road. Cheers and
Thank
have
you,
yourselves a
everybody.
great evening.
Thank you,
and see you on
Patani.
Tuesday.
Thank you, Nic. Thank you. Bye-bye.